Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the first 2026 Masterclass with Women in Cloud. I want to start by saying this. You're not here by accident. You are here because you are the builders, the leaders, and decision makers in a moment where AI is reshaping everything we build, how we secure, and how we scale. And today you are stepping into a room designed not just for learning, but for access, for your acceleration and action. For those of you I have not met, I am Chaitra Vidalapalli. I'm the president and co-founder of Women in Cloud and recently honored to serve as a US delegate for W20 for G27. So my life's work is extremely simple, like design system that unlock access at scale, not one opportunity at a time, but entire economic pathways for people to grow, earn, and lead. So before we dive in, let's make this interactive because the best rooms are not the one where people just listen. They are the one where people think, reflect, and engage. So let me ask you a quick question. When you hear the word DevSecOps, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Drop it in the chat or think about it. Is it security slowing things down? Is it compliance and audits? Is it automation and pipelines? Or is it something more strategic like trust, resilience in the AI system? Go ahead, put it in the chat for me. Is it security that is slowing things down? Is it compliance and audits? Is it automation and pipelines? Or is it something more strategic like trust and resilience in the AI system? So I love it. Janine says security, compliance. Nadia says trust and resilience. Grace thinks cybersecurity. So keep your answers in mind because by the end of this session, you will see DevSecOps very differently. So let's dive in. And before we go further, Carolina, if you can move it, let's take a moment to introduce the platform behind this masterclass. So Women in Cloud is a global economic access movement. And I want to be very clear about this. We are an economic engine. Our mission is to democratize $1 billion of economic access for women and allies in the AI economy. We are 150,000 members strong across the 120 countries, and we have already unlocked over 600 million in economic access. So we do this by focusing on three things. One is your career access, ensuring the talent gets skilled, certified, and hired. When it comes to like founders and enterprise access, helping the founders to get customers and generate revenue, ensuring they can build $1 million business. And then the leadership access, helping executives to step into influence, invest the capital, and be in the boardroom. Because access is not inspiration, access is income, opportunity, and scale. So this year, we rolled out the 2026 State of the Economic Access Report. I recommend all of you to read it. Take a moment. If you want to take a screenshot, that would be fantastic. Now, that brings me to something that I'm incredibly excited about. Right now, we are running the 100 AI Innovator Circuit Challenge. This is a little bit different. It's not about learning AI, it's about building the AI. In the last 36 hours, we have 20,000 people. It's reached 20,000 people and 50 innovators are engaging. So go ahead and participate in it and also download how to become an AI innovator blueprint. And that one was developed by Monika with me. So coming to the next slide is, here's the real question when we think about the security. You see all these amazing announcements and press articles that you see. So if you go to next slide, there's always security at the top of the one. Bad things come and people see what's happening in the security. But question for you is, where does security actually sit in your current workflow? Is it at the end when something breaks? Is it in the middle as checkpoints? Or is it at the beginning as a design principle? Take a second and be honest with yourself. Tell me, where does the security sit? At the end, in the middle, or at the beginning? And today's masterclass is unlocking that pathway to help you see your future with confidence. Okay, so with that, in the middle, I like that. At the beginning, beautiful. Security by design, perfect. Every stage, Shalaka, that is very true. It is every stage. Design principle, beginning, mapping with the compliance. Fantastic. I have shared the job trends and the talent opportunities. This is the fastest growing market in the AI economy. And if you can build your brand and your identity to support that, there's a huge economic opportunities waiting for you. So now it's my absolute privilege to introduce someone who is not just shaping technology, but shaping how enterprise build, secure, and scale in the AI era. It's Monika Mital Gupta. She's the partner general manager at Microsoft. She's also a board of advisor at Women in Cloud and a globally recognized thought leader in engineering and enterprise transformation. Monika brings deep expertise in building secure, scalable, and intelligent platforms, leading high impact initiatives that sit at the intersection of AI, security, and modern engineering. She's also spent her career solving one of the hardest problems in the tech. So the questions, like, instead of like, how do you move fast without compromising trust? How do you innovate at scale while embedding security at the core? And today, as AI transforms every layer of the enterprise, her work is more relevant than ever. Beyond her role at Microsoft, she is deeply committed to mentoring leaders, advancing women in tech, and helping organizations rethink how engineering drives business value. What I personally admire about Monika is she does not just talk about transformation, she builds systems and people that make it real. So if you are ready to rethink how DevSecOps shows up in the AI world, you're in the right room. So Monika, welcome. So excited to have you here.
Thank you, Chaitra. And I'm excited to be here as well. Welcome, everyone. I am Monika Mital Gupta, as Chaitra already was generous enough to give such a great introduction. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. So, just a quick introduction about myself. I've been with Microsoft for 19 plus years and 27 plus years in the industry. And I've really lived this DevOps, DevSecOps, and now AI ops evolution firsthand. Made the mistakes, seen the breakthroughs, and I'm here to really give you a version that I hope that will help you, or I wish somebody would have given me when I started off on my journey, and I hope it will help you. So, at this start, I do want to set some expectations right up front. This is not meant to be a compliance lecture. It's not meant to be a product pitch. I'm covering some examples during my talk here, which hopefully are across the industry, not just Microsoft. But over the next 40 or 45 minutes, I am going to share how I have seen some great engineering teams build security into their DNA, not just bolt it in the end or bolt it here and there, but really build it into the DNA of the systems. I'm hoping I will be able to share some real stories, some real trade offs, and some practical frameworks that you can hopefully apply. So we are going to cover the full spectrum and the full journey, and I hope to close with some practical career insights as well. So let's get into it. Before we get into the next slide, a quick show of hands. How many of you have been part of a release or part of a work flow that got delayed or a production launch that got delayed because security team came in and found something while you were getting ready to launch? Let's do a quick poll. show of hands, and I can't see the chat or the hands. So Chatra, you have to help me. But if we have people who have done anything and they have seen that happen, it's I'm sure if we had 50% or more, then I'm sure that's exactly why we are here today, because that's happened with me and with the work that I have done in my career multiple times. And it's not just once, but multiple times. So early in my career, I'll give you an example to start off with. When I was leading a team and we were shipping a major internal product, features done, tests done, all green, deadline met, ready to launch a week before go live. As usual, the security team came in and came back with 47 findings. And obviously, we had to delay by 2 or 3 weeks while we fixed the most critical ones and continued to fix as we went into production as well. Obviously, the business was frustrated, the engineers were frustrated, they were demoralized, and honestly, none of those findings were surprises. They were patterns that we had seen before. It's just a matter of whether we had spotted them and paid attention. We just hadn't built the habit of catching them early. And so that is really how DevOps came into the picture and DevSecOps came into the picture. So before we really talk about DevSecOps, let's ground ourselves as to what does DevOps mean. And I'm hoping that people know this already if you're here joining this masterclass. But just to ground ourselves, what's the shared definition of DevOps? Because I've seen different organizations and different teams can call everything DevOps when it's really just, hey, we use Git now. And yet people say, oh, we are doing DevOps now. So if you can see, I tried to dumb it down to a really simple explanation of what DevOps means. It's really about the how the people, the process, and the products come together in a loop of continuous delivery. And I know that in general, people expect that DevOps definition may be something technical, but if you think about it, this feedback loop is really the engine. From plan to develop to deploy to operate to monitor and learn, and then all over again. And every cycle needs to be faster. And then the continuous integration and the continuous development pipelines are really the backbone of this loop. So there is a DevOps research and assessment. I don't know if you have heard about this framework. If you have not, it's called the DORA Research and Assessment Framework. It's DevOps Research and Assessment Framework. And they really have done analysis and measurements about this whole loop. And what it tells us is that the elite teams, and they have different ways of measuring it and tagging different types of maturity in that framework. And the top is the elite, right? And the elite DevOps teams really deploy 200 times more frequently and recover 24 times faster than traditional teams. And that's the truth. However, the real crux or where the ground reality meets this ambition is that speed without safety is just fast failure. And that's where DevSecOps comes in. So, if I were to ask you, in case you are part of an engineering team and you are doing deployments, what is your current deployment frequency? Whether it's once a quarter, once a sprint, once a day, and there's no wrong answer here. It's just the baseline. That's where you are. And with DevOps and DevSecOps, the opportunity that you have is to be able to bridge this gap between where you are and where the elite team's maturity lies. And that really is the DevSecOps opportunity. So if we are to get into what is really the DevSecOps security map, if you can go to the next slide, please. So in order to understand how that happens, you have to look at where security fits in this life cycle, the loop that I talked about in the first slide. It starts from even before you start the dev cycle. It starts in pre-commit stage, in the planning stage, where you have to think about the security plugins or hooks in your environment. What are your standards that you're going to be building against from a security standpoint. And then if you think about it, then you go into the whole loop of where you're committing, how you're doing your code reviews, how you're doing the analysis, how you're doing your testing, how you're even looking at your dependency and credentials and access management. It continues into the deploy and operate and monitor. As you can see, the concept of infrastructure as code is very important to be able to really imbibe the principles of DevSecOps. We cannot see infrastructure as something separate from our own development practices or engineering practices. And that's something I will work through as we go through the conversation today. I'll walk you through some of that. What does that mean? What does that mean? And how do we really think through that? The main thing to look at it is these are four common stages, while the development life cycle really spans across multiple stages. But for you to be able to think about it when you are getting into DevSecOps is look at the development or the software life cycle and think about these four stages as the main places where security needs to be thought of before you even get into those stages. So with that, if I really get into what DevSecOps means, again, building to those stages, as I mentioned, how do we think about each stage and what do we have to do in each stage? This is really the bridge. You saw the DevOps loop, you look at the changes when security is embedded, and the loop looks the same. If you think on it from a surface, you're not really changing your software lifecycle. All you're doing is that there is a security practice attached to each of these nodes or each of these bubbles. And that's really the crux of how you have to think about DevSecOps. In fact, I mentioned like infrastructure as a code, right? In the deploy stage as an example. What does that mean? It really means that you are thinking about scanning the infrastructure to look at any misconfigurations. You are continuously monitoring the loop at runtime, and then you're feeding that back into the loop and when you do the next deployment. And that's the key shift here. If I have to really put it in one sentence, the developers, when something that developers do as intentional from a security point of view versus what security as an afterthought. And that's the real mindset shift or the cultural shift that needs to happen when you're thinking about DevSecOps. One of the things I will share from my own experience as an engineering leader, one of the things that I really did after learning my lessons early on was that I removed the word security review from our process vocabulary. And I replaced it with something called security engineering. And it's, if you think about it, it's the same thing. You're still doing security reviews, but it does signal a real shift. It was a very different ownership signal versus security review means somebody else is doing the review versus security engineering means you own the actual practice and the results and the outcomes that come from it. So that's something to think about, but it did shift the team in their mindset and how the team stopped waiting for a security team, but rather started owning the outcomes themselves. So if I have to go into a side-by-side comparison, just to give you a summary of what we have talked about so far, I would say it's the same thing, but it's just you're strengthening the house across all these different areas. As I mentioned, the goal, the security, ownership, the mindset, the testing, and you're just enhancing it and strengthening it with security best practices, and you're using tools in order to do that. And some of these examples of some tools and measurement frameworks, like I spoke about the DORA framework upfront, help you in order to be able to think about whether you are on the right path or not in your DevSecOps journey. As you can see, we did some defense research report within Microsoft, and it did show us from data itself that high-performing teams using DevSecOps actually are able to see 50% less security incidents and 3 times more faster compliance audits. And that just showed us that we are on the right path. So I'm going to move on to more, let's get into the actual action. What does it mean from an action point of view? And as you can see in this slide, again, I'm using the same bubbles, just breaking down into more granular software engineering lifecycle milestones. It is the similar loop that we talked about. But what do you really mean, and what do you have to do in order to put DevSecOps in action in your day-to-day work? And you can see that it's right up there, right? An example is in the planning stage. Now you can say, what do you want? What do you mean by planning? We do threat modeling upfront. That means before even a line of code is written, the team is to ask themselves, what are the trust boundaries? What are the worst things an attacker could do here? And we use the framework called STRIDE. I have given the acronym expansion on the bottom. It really is spoofing, tampering, reputation, information disclosure, denial of service, elevation of privilege. And these are all security terms. You can go and look up Stride and you will be able to find more information about it. But that really is a structured framework to think about your threat modeling. And how do you think about it before even you write a single line of code? Similarly, in other phases, you can think about how do you think about configuration? What are some of the secure coding practices that are you using? And then use some of the tools that are available that you can actually run to help you with some of this. As we go through these different phases, there are different things that you can do as practices. But the main thing that I've learned over the examples that I've had and different projects that we have done, the supply chain, it's very important to look at what's your supply chain attack vector. And that means that your upstream, your downstream dependency, your third party integrations, your first party integrations, that really is the spectrum that you should be looking at, not just your own area or what you are building, but really thinking about the attack or the security vulnerabilities from all those angles. So again, I don't want to, given the time that we have today, but I have given some pointers there about different things that you can think of in each of these phases. What do they mean, and how does that help you be more secure in each of your phases and look at the outcomes rather than just think about what you're building? That's one of the biggest things. The other aspect I was going to talk about is something that we have imbibed as a principle, where we think about policy as code, which means, for example, in Azure, we look at Azure policy and, as I mentioned, infrastructure as a code scanning, which allows us to look at any configurations that are being mishandled or are not in alignment with the policy. And that's something that was not there in the previous ways of how we used to think. The tagline, as I mentioned earlier, is that security is everyone's job. It's not somebody else coming in to review you, and then as developers or as engineers, you're just sitting there and waiting for somebody else to find an issue and you will go fix. That is a more reactive approach. And that's where we talk about shifting left versus being more proactive. And when you are more proactive, we have data to show how it has financial impacts from what you find a bug in pre-dev stages, which I think everybody should be aware of by now, versus what you find the cost of a bug in a production environment. So those are some real business reasons why DevSecOps is so important for everybody. If I have to go on to the next areas and shift a little bit of gear as to how we are thinking about now AI in this new world. And I've put it there because really AI is the new superpower that you can leverage to help you on the DevSecOps journey. Because a lot of tools that we are working with, whether it's GitHub, they are coming out with signals and processing and auto fix options that will enable you to be able to take action even before you find it. It can actually detect, signal it, and even fix it for you. And that's just helping the cycle become faster. There are other examples. As you can see, I've mentioned some of these examples of different tools across the industry. Snyk Code AI Engine, if you have worked with that, that really helps with some of the tests that can be run from a secure point of view and does great scoring. It is used across multiple enterprises and it doesn't find issues, it actually ranks them. And so developers can know what to prioritize first, things like that. So there are a lot of developments that have happened leveraging AI that can help the tools within the tools themselves. So that can help the developers to be able to do this without a lot of effort. So please do take a time to look at this. I'm sure we'll be sharing these slides out, but this will help you and get familiarized with some of these tooling options that can help you in accelerating your own DevSecOps journey. Before I move on to the next chapter of how and share some real examples and real trade-offs that have seen in my own journey, I would love to get a poll or a chat and put it in chat. How are you seeing AI as an enabler? Have you been able to leverage or check or use AI for doing some of your work, or have you seen it as a hindrance? I would love to get a chat to see some chat going. So the question really is, how have you seen AI help in some of your DevOps work or your development lifecycle work, or how are you seeing it as a hindrance more than an enabler? Would love to get some poll.
And Monica, I'm just waiting for them to respond so I can read it out for you. Is saying is it's their automation is how they are looking at AI.
Awesome. Yeah, I would. The reason why I asked it, if you haven't, you should, is what I would say. Because it is not just automating existing security work, right? It's creating entirely new roles and new career paths within the DevSecOps world. App security engineer, machine learning security specialist, platform security architects. These roles did not necessarily exist 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but that is opening up avenues for even career progression in in this space. So I would definitely encourage you all to think about it, go learn about it, and I will share some tips as we come towards our ending about how you can think about career and what you should be looking at.
Yeah, and Monica, we got few more response. Nadia said like a skilled work co-worker who's going to work with you. And Gitanjali said root cause analysis in seconds and detect bugs early stages. And then Haneen said is I see it as a threat in cybersecurity. And Janine said if I used correctly, it's a heaven sent in getting answers quicker and most accurately, still having some learning to do.
Yeah.
Pamela said saves me hours of manpower time. And just as AI as an enhancer, I ask questions like, can this idea actually be deployed before I start building from concept?
Awesome. And that's great because you're starting off. But I can tell you from experience with my teams, you're scratching the surface. So that's why I'm putting some of these tools up front in front of you. Go experiment with them. You will see the power of AI really shine through when you start using these tools, and you can really see the effect and the outcomes much more strongly than what you see right now. To sum it up, if you think about the journey of our evolution, right, DevOps to DevSecOps to AI SecOps now, that's really the difference in how one security is to be part of everything that you do. It's everybody's responsibility. You should be thinking about how we shift left, policy as code, think compliance check-ins, and the work that you have to do is to be done not in the aftermath but in the upfront before even you start with the phase. And then AI SecOps, just as I was mentioning, there are team opportunities for you to be able to leverage some of the tools, but really leverage the intelligence insights to do some proactive actioning rather than reactive. And the other part is that you can really think about automating the end to end pipeline. It's not about automating pieces of it, but you can really automate the end to end pipeline leveraging some of the AI tools. And I wouldn't say that it's perfect, but it's evolving pretty fast from month to month. So it's definitely something that I would encourage you to put an investment in. Myself, I can give you my own example. I currently enrolled in the MIT XPro MLAI program, specifically focused on security, not because I needed another credential, but because I believe that leaders need to understand the power of AI at fundamentally every stage in our work. And really, the winning this whole game of leading DevSecOps or the entire engineering lifecycle with an AI native mindset. And that takes a little bit of focusing, grounding, and mindset shift. And the mindset shift really is not about what does it do, which is what we are doing today. Most of the people are doing that. And that's why I say scratching the surface. But how really does this actually work? And how can I make it work for me? So that really helps in being able to make that evolution shift. Let's move on from actual examples from the field. And I wanted to share some of these because you can really see the power of leveraging AI or SecOps or DevSecOps in the actual real-time scenarios. I can share, which is confidential. Some of it I have anonymized because of the confidentiality. But if I had to take my own company an example, we have, say, 100K, 1,000 engineers across posts. You cannot have humans viewing every pull request manually. Security reviews, as I mentioned, people were looking at it as something as an afterthought rather than a proactive step. But with the GitHub Copilot, Autofix, and GitHub Advanced Security rollout, we were able to pull in some of those tools, as I was talking about, in every pull request. And now we are starting to leverage Copilot's Autofix for actually instant remediation as well. So we are seeing that some of the reduction in security review times in some teams. This is just example for some teams, not across Microsoft, because we are getting there in all the teams. We are able to see vulnerabilities are being caught before we even start merging the code branches. And then we are also not looking at compliance is quarterly scramble, but it's an always on light. So that's something that we are shifting, and we are seeing some of those real trade-offs and some real outcomes at the same time. Similarly, you see some of these examples that I have given. Global healthcare, that is such a big space where a lot of manual compliance checks are happening even now. And that adds a lot of lag to our release cycles, but it also adds a lot of risk from a data protection point of view. And hence, there is a lot of focus on audits. We saw that by using some of the tools like Sentinel and Snyk, AI generated audit trails, we are able to remove some of those lags, delays in automated labeling or audit results tracking. And also, it was a big productivity boost because a lot of that effort, which used to be months, has gone down to hours now. And that's some real ROI right there from a business case point of view. Similarly, you can see it in the global investment banking spectrum. That's a right place for supply chain attack. And that's what I was talking about, the chain analytics that people should be doing all the time. Because even while your own system may be secure, a compromised third-party library can lead to a really big vector attack across the entire ecosystem. So some examples that you're seeing, and that's the common pattern we found, that if you were embedding it early, it definitely led to a lot of lower cost as well as lower effort from our scenarios perspective. I don't know if you all have seen any of the scenarios in your own worlds or areas that you have worked with, or clients that you're working with, or your own work, not just the work, but the business areas that you are focused on. But there are definitely, if I ask you to go look at different aspects of your business domain, I'm sure you will be able to find some of the common patterns. So that is one exercise I would ask you to do. Whichever business domain area you're working on, go think about what are the common patterns of risks that you're seeing and how you are being able to think about security that can help, or embedding security early that can help bring down that risk from that when you identify the pattern itself. So to move on, I did say that some of the leveraging the DORA framework, what do elite teams really do? If you think about it, these are really, I've tried to summarize it in some top 5 practices that you can see some of the elite teams really do to be at that maturity level in terms of their DevSecOps journey or AISecOps journey. And the first one I spoke about is shift left. And that exactly what I was talking about all through is really the mindset of thinking about security, embedding it into anything, even before a line of code is written. Design time, things like that. Not after the sprint, not after the release, but before the first line itself. Secondly, think of everything as code. Generally, people think of code as the lines of instructions they are writing to make things happen. But if you start thinking of policy as code, infrastructure as code, compliance as code, it shifts the mindset into how we have to bring these standards and guidelines up front. And that helps in making sure focusing on the outcomes in a secure and compliant way. Similarly, there's the option of continuous compliance. But at the same time, you do not want to be spending effort and cycles to do this work. So you really think about how you can augment the whole operational cycle with AI. And I've also suggested some tools by category here. You can go look at them, look them up, experiment with them, play with them, but they can really help you in different stages of the work that we do within the entire life cycle of DevOps. I will move on to now shift gears into, you might be thinking, okay, this is all great. I've learned about what we can do, but what does it really mean from a career roadmap? And what are the opportunities of DevSecOps from a career point of view? I've tried to again simplify it. If you are an entry level who is looking to become a DevSecOps engineer, what does it mean? What is really expected out of you? But I do want to say something here, and maybe it's a little provocative, but DevSecOps is not a discipline. It's not a job title. It's really the responsibility that you will take on as part of the role that you are going to have within the company or within the area that you're working on. And while we can have some titles like DevOps engineer, security analyst, cloud engineer, things like that, as I've mentioned here, what it really means is the level of responsibility that you hold within that particular frame. So think of it as what are you expected to do? And I've tried to lay it out. What are some of the tools that you are expected to know and use? And then as you mature in your journey to become a practitioner or an architect or even a leader, the responsibility and the level of expectation and the maturity in your understanding as well as your tools usage goes up. So really it is about that. And it's about the depth as well as the breadth between these different roles from a career roadmap perspective. I've also laid out some of these certifications that you can look at, the top certifications that can help you get started if you are working on towards a career roadmap. Then these are some of the top certifications that you can look at to really help you kickstart your journey or really establish yourself in those roles. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions that are coming up from the audience here around the career roadmap or any of the certifications. And Chaitra, I know that as part of Women in Cloud, we are also offering some of these certifications and how we can enable the community to get those certifications.
Yeah, and Monica, this one was very insightful session for even just to see how the AI is used and how you can accelerate the career. Because if you know how to protect the system, that can be the biggest career accelerator, as you say.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait for people to add in their question. If you have any, put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Monica has done it for years. So
Yeah, and as people are putting in, I can share my own journey, right? I didn't follow a linear path to where I am. I've led engineering teams, I've done different roles within my own career journey. But in each of those journeys, that's why I said it's more about the responsibility than the title. And then as you get into that, you've led operations, you are working on developer productivity, you're working on engineering productivity. As part of that, you just learn these different aspects of what does it mean from a DevOps point of view, what does it mean from a security ops point of view, and then you imbibe that and you mature your skills and your experience, and that helps you on this career path.
yep. And
Okay, response.
Monica, I think the Pamela's question is, how did you know where did you want to? Like how, okay, socialize. Okay. How did you know where did you want to
Sorry, can you
socialize?
expand on that?
Okay, let me
How
say
did
the
you know
question
where
again.
you want to socialize?
To
Yeah.
specialize,
Socialize?
specialize.
Oh, specialized. I think it was more, as I said, it was a function of the role and responsibility. So, for example, as an engineering leader, when you really see that there is an area, security, obviously, as I said, is everybody's responsibility. And that is where we have the most risk. I went and looked at how I can really learn more about it, which of the areas that I really need to dive into from a security stack point of view. But honestly, as an engineering leader, the entire life cycle, as I've been saying, you have to be focusing on security being embedded across every area. And so then you really start specializing into what does that mean? How do I then AI came along. Okay, how do we leverage AI into this different paradigms of where we have to focus on from a security aspect of it? So that really led to that specialization to say, yes, security is the key enabler here and is the biggest risk. And with AI, that risk is even more now from a compliance privacy point of view. So that is, it's a natural thought evolution process. And that's how I looked at it and said, okay, this is an area that we definitely need to get expertise and specialize in and maturity in, because that's what elite engineering teams do.
So there's a couple of questions for you, Monica. How do you integrate DevSecOps with other platforms like Salesforce?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's again going back to your vector. You need to look at your entire vector of spectrum, whether it's Salesforce. Ultimately, you are engineering. If I have to really forget these platforms, forget the technology you're using. At the end of the day, you are leading or doing engineering. If I have to really make it very simple, you are engineering or you are building, whether you're a product manager, whether you are an engineer, you are building something, you are envisioning something. The way that this integrates into those kind of platforms is by being able to leverage some of the tools that are available, engineering tools that are available, to make sure that your entire ecosystem or the life cycle or the chain is being addressed through your security practices. That's what I would encourage you to think. It's not so much about, hey, how do I make this platform more secure? It's more about how do I make sure that the entire pipeline of engineering, whether it's the envisioning to the deployment, to the monitoring, or to the support, is being secure, made secure. So I hope that helps in really making it simple. It applies to everything across the board. And when you talk about Salesforce or any other platform, it becomes your third party integration. It can be your first party. It's about how do you integrate it and how do you integrate it into that cycle.
Cool.
Does that help?
Yeah. Monika, I have two questions, but this one I want to start with G's question first, and then Janine, I'll get to your question. So
So,
Gigi
Chaitra,
says,
do you want to wait till I just complete? Because some of those questions might get addressed in the next couple of slides, but if that's okay with you, and then we can take on the questions.
no, I think we can address this one,
Okay,
Monika.
awesome.
So,
That's
like
good.
this one is which internal teams or role act as primary customers for the DevOps team? I'm interested in whether the communication flow is primarily with software engineers for deployments or with TPMs and product managers for infrastructure planning.
It's all. As I mentioned, security is everybody's responsibility. There is no stakeholder about for security. I know that's the mindset I'm trying to make sure that people take away from this whole DevSecOps journey.
Okay.
TPMs, product managers, security teams, where in all the companies there are security teams, right? Which they are specialists in security. But the fact that they are just specialists in security is doesn't mean that all the security responsibility rests with them. So I would say that the stakeholders are really your customers and users of your platform or your the work that you're doing or your product that you're building or your solution. They are your primary stakeholders. You owe it to them to enable a secure experience. And so in that journey, a TPM, a PM, they need to be thinking about envisioning from an infrastructure point of view or even from your product features point of view, making sure that those are being incorporated into your product management planning cycles. You are looking at it from what are the security features that need to be built in, what are the effort allocation I need to do to make sure security is part of everything that we are thinking about. As I said, infrastructure should be envisioned upfront rather than as a so yeah it I would say it is all the roles have to be equally involved. Now the responsibility would be a little bit different from a communication standpoint, right? The TPM and PM would look at, hey, what are the challenges and risks here from a security standpoint? They should be looking at that, doing risk analysis along with the engineering team and be putting those as features into the roadmap plans, things like that. So those responsibility divisions can happen.
So now coming to Janine's question is really around the practical guide for the DevSecOps journey. I hope each one of you enjoyed the masterclass. So share it in your chat. What was your learning? It was this helpful for each one of you because this is the kind of depth we want to ensure you have so you're prepared for these opportunities. Yep, I see some claps going on, some high thumbs up going on, Monika. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I learned a lot, and 1 being I have no idea why I came here. So put it in the chat for Monika. That'll be amazing. And for many of you, you're thinking about how you can be part of Women in Cloud and what the program is. We do have a DevSecOps program, which is really focused on this particular mindset and skilling in mind. And Monika and the rest of the other folks have really come together to help ensure that each one of you are ready. And this program is available so you can sign up, be there. Usually we roll it out in cohorts of 250 people or less so that it's a very intimate. There is a whole readiness board that is created for each one of you. So it helps you really start from where you are to where you need to finish. So when that is announced, please take a moment to apply. And there are 4 certification programs and actually 3 certification programs and 1 innovation challenge because it brings all the learning and 1 practical to do. So we have a cybersecurity programming, we have a DevSecOps, and then AI innovator. At the end of the day, if you are ready, if you start putting your effort, you will be the early top 10% of the population who's going through it and building the modern technology. So here are some quotes from our community who has gone through it, from Miriam to Carnegie to the other folks who actually have gone through it. I would love each one of you to be part of the program and be recognized. And the next one is we actually are rolling out this amazing poster that Monika got to work with us, which is how to become an AI innovator. So please join and be part of it. Get the poster, download it, stick it on your computer, and go through every little step. And once you do it, by 6 months, I promise you will be making 100,000 or higher level jobs because it has everything that you need. And for the recordings from today's session, it will be available through the cohorts, which is the DevSecOps and the AI ops. If you don't feel like I want to join, then join the Confidence Circle. It is priced at $99, so you can be part of it and you get access to all the masterclass. I hope to see you on the other side. And again, thank you for being here. And Monika, thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a great day.